One line in particular stood out when the president declared a national emergency Friday to pay for his border wall. It was when the president said that he didn't need to do it.
I could do the wall over a longer period of time. I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster.
No surprise, the White House is quickly trying to clean that up. Here is the case that Trump's senior advisor Stephen Miller tried to make yesterday.
What the president was saying is that like past presidents, he could choose to ignore this crisis, choose to ignore this emergency as others have, but that's not what he's going to do.
But is that going to stop the lawsuits that have been threatened even before the declaration was made? Doubtful. But let's find out. Joining me right now, California's Attorney General, the former Democratic Congressman Xavier Becerra. Attorney General, thank you for being here.
Of course, Kate.
So you said you will be filing a lawsuit against the president imminently, is how you put it yesterday. When is that going to happen?
We should be filing sometime today. It's kind of awkward to say that on President's Day we're going to be suing the President of the United States, but sometimes that's what you have to do.
So the lawsuit is not only coming, it is coming today. What are you asking for in the lawsuit?
Well, we're going to try to halt the president from violating the Constitution, the separation of powers, from stealing money from Americans and states that has been allocated by Congress lawfully. And we're going to try to make sure we keep the president from continuing to play this theater by manipulating the office of the president to do his bidding, simply because I think he's trying to essentially send a message to his base, a shrinking base, that he fulfills his promises.
When it comes to your lawsuit, is this just California? Are you going it alone, or are other states joining you in this lawsuit as well?
There'll probably be about a dozen states that join us. We've been working closely with them for quite some time. We're prepared, whether it's Nevada or New Mexico or New York or Oregon, Hawaii, Minnesota, Colorado. There are a number of states that are ready to go with us. New Jersey, I can name a number.
So the president's focus for the wall to this point has been Texas. I am assuming that Texas is not joining you in this lawsuit, but that might be a wild assumption on my part, but I'm just going to go there with that. But if Texas is his focus, Mr. Attorney General, that raises the question, and has raised the question, of standing coming from the Attorney General of California. You said yesterday that you're confident that California has standing in this case. Can you explain to me how, if this wall is going to be built in the Rio Grande Valley?
So remember, Kate, the basis for standing is if there's harm. If the president is essentially stealing money that's been allocated to go to the various states for various purposes, but no longer will, we're being harmed. Our people are being harmed. You don't have to reside in Texas. And by the way, on behalf of the people of Texas, we'll be trying to defend their right to have their taxpayer dollars used the right way, not an unconstitutional way. But regardless, the people who live in this country know that under the Constitution, it is Congress who decides how to spend their taxpayer dollars, not the president. And so whether or not it's in Texas, if dollars are taken from states that have a purpose for those uses, then we are harmed.
So Stephen Miller tried to clarify what the president was saying when he had said that he didn't need to do the emergency declaration, when he said that on Friday. And what Stephen Miller says is that the president meant that he could have ignored it, as they argue that many other presidents have. They say the emergency exists, but they could have just ignored it. If that is what the president really meant, does that take away some of your argument?
No, I mean, the facts are what they are. The president admitted he didn't have to do this because it's not an emergency. He admitted that he expects to lose in court. He admitted that there is no crisis on the border. And all the facts in his own Border Patrol agency and the Department of Homeland Security are providing all the evidence for this. And so clearly what the president is doing is more, as I said, it's more theater in a way, but he's determined on in many ways undermining the Constitution by trying to play to his shrinking base. But be that as it may, our purpose is to go into court to halt him from doing what he cannot do under the Constitution.
Congress does have an option here to stop the president. They can pass a resolution that would end the national emergency. It takes a couple steps. It's something that is under discussion. Why don't you let that play out before you file a lawsuit?
Well, that will play out, I hope, and hopefully Congress will do its job. And it requires a bipartisan effort to do its job, because if the president decides to veto a measure to try to halt this unconstitutional act by the president, then there will be a need for Republicans to vote with Democrats to try to prevent the president from doing what no president has been allowed to do, and that is to raid accounts that have been properly appropriated for other purposes to use for something that has not been given authority. And so I would hope that Republicans stand up. The party of Lincoln is quickly becoming, perilously becoming, the party of Trump. And I hope that they recognize that they should not be succumbing to this type of unconstitutional activity simply to try to politically protect the leader of their party.
Real quick, last year you sued the president over building a wall, trying to stop any building over environmental concerns. That was the lawsuit in a nutshell. A federal judge shot that down. Why do you think this time is going to be different?
Well, I think in this case, we're talking about a clear violation of the separation of powers, where the president, after months of trying to get Congress to provide him taxpayer money to build this border wall, which Mexico is not going to pay for, even though the president promised that would be the case, he is now trying to move beyond Congress and do Congress's job of trying to take the money that Congress allocates and spend it on his wall. That's a clear violation of a constitutional prerogative of the Congress under Article 1 of the Constitution. It can't be any clearer than that. And as the president himself admitted when he announced this declaration on Friday, he understands he's going to go to court and he's probably going to lose.
Yeah, he definitely did say that he was ready for it to go to court and to the Ninth Circuit, nonetheless. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being here. It will now be up for the court on this one, yet another policy of the president's, to decide. Let's see what the next steps are. But you are filing that lawsuit today, we now learn. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Appreciate your time.
Yes. Thank you, Kate.
Coming up.